Good evening. It's April 15th, 2014. Let's hope everybody's paid their taxes, who's planning to pay their taxes. We know that the meeting, this being the second meeting of April 2014, has been officially warned because we've already convened and gone into executive session to discuss personnel matter. The first matter on the agenda is to approve minutes from April 1 and April 7 of 2014. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes from April 1 and April 7, 2014 as presented?
So moved.
We have a motion to approve minutes from April 1 and April 7, 2014 as presented. Does anybody have any comments, suggestions, edits for those minutes, that being anybody on the board or anybody who's in attendance? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed or abstaining? That carries 4-0. It should be noted that the select board is operating tonight on 4 instead of 5 cylinders. One of our members is not present for tonight's meeting. The next matter on the agenda is chair's remarks. There's a number of things that I want to speak to, substantive business of the town, but there's also another topic that I think that it's important to address. Over the course of the last 3 or 4 weeks, there's been a series of pieces of correspondence that I have received and that have been directed to other members of the select board, and also pieces of correspondence that I've seen going to various town employees that have been marked by really significant anger and vitriol, targeted correspondence that's been criticizing people who work for the town and people who serve on the select board, and significantly criticizing with strong ad hominem attacks the work that's being done. It's something that I ignored before the last meeting, but really thought that it's important to speak to it briefly today. One of the things that I think is most important when serving in any sort of elected position or any sort of town government or any position is treating others with respect, listening to people, and working for the public good. And I know that all of the people who are serving on the select board and the people who work for the town really try to fulfill that purpose, working for the public good and working out of a sense of commitment to try to do the right thing. It's certain that being in government and the world of politics is a rough and tumble place and has been that way for probably forever. But I certainly would encourage people who are communicating with each other and with us to try to treat everybody with respect. I know that from time to time people are frustrated by the way government operates. They feel that their taxes are too high. But I really would request that people try to treat everybody with respect, because we're all here working to try to do the right thing, and we will treat everybody with respect consistently, and we hope that everybody will show us the same courtesy. The other issues that I have on for the chair's comments, first of all, talking about frustrating events, the highway, everybody knows, was closed for about 24 hours from Saturday night through Sunday night. It turned into just a terrible mess here in town. Traffic backed up. Took half hour, an hour just to get off of exit 1 or off of exit 3, and traffic was backed up all through town for a significant period of time. It creates real challenges when we've only got 2 major north-south routes through town, and when the highway's closed, it bottles up downtown really badly. And we just have to ask everybody to remain patient. I certainly can represent that hopefully the town is not being burdened with additional costs itself as a result of the highway closures, but rather the state or the contractor hopefully will be paying the town for any additional expenses and overtime that we had to bear to deal with the traffic. But it certainly bears noting that traffic was really very backed up over the weekend, and we apologize to that to the extent there's anything that we can do about it. It's also important to note that an entity of very long standing in the community, the Austin School, announced on Friday that it's going to be closing its doors. We've done what we could to try to support the institution, but what we can do for right now is hope that it serves as an opportunity going forward. There are at least 100, probably hundreds of acres of land up there that may be available for development and additional facilities that will be open, and we certainly look forward to this, not just as a closing, although it's too bad that it's closing, but also as a new beginning. Also, I would note, once again, and there's been a lot of publicity in the last 2 weeks, that the vote on the budget begins at 9 o'clock and ends at 7 o'clock this coming Thursday, the 17th of April, here in the Select Board meeting room. Everybody is encouraged to come out and vote on the budget. We had our informational meeting last Wednesday, and it was marginally attended, but we want to thank everybody who came out and participated in that informational meeting and who asked questions about the budget. Absentee ballots or early voting is still available through the close of business tomorrow, and we encourage everybody to come out and vote on the town budget. That's the end of the chair's remarks. Town manager's comments?
Yes, thank you, David. There's a couple of things I'd like the board and the public to be aware of. It's several times during managers' comments over the course of this year, I have brought it to the board and the public's attention that it's been a difficult winter. And as a result of that, we certainly recognize that individual line items in the public works budget, particularly for things like salt and sand, equipment, gasoline, and diesel expenses, are over budget, in part because of the number and the frequency of the various different winter events that took place over this season. Well, interesting to note that spring is proving to be quite a challenge as well. It was a very cold winter. As a result, the frost is deep into the dirt roads, making for quite a mud season this year, the likes of which we haven't seen in some time. And in response to that, in an attempt to maintain and keep our roads open, we have spent probably $20,000 in the last 2 weeks alone in terms of gravel for the back roads. In all, it looks like our road maintenance budget could be significantly overspent this year. So we're obviously going to need to be looking for savings elsewhere in the budget. Second thing I'd like to talk about is I want to thank the residents, particularly out in the back roads. We made a decision last week to suspend trash pickup for a couple of days, in part to keep large and heavy trucks off of the roads. It's one thing to have small passenger vehicles riding on muddy dirt roads, but it's another thing altogether to have very large and very heavy trucks on the back roads during particularly bad mud seasons such as this. So, folks, I just want to say thank you, and I appreciate your patience in terms of having your trash picked up. We're back on schedule and should be returning to normal, but just want to thank you for your patience. I also want to just make note that a good friend and ally at the Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation, Pat Moulton Powden, is going to be returning to Montpelier, and we wish her the best up there. There was a letter to the editor in today's paper that really brought home some things that I know I feel, and I hope a lot of other folks feel. There have been a lot of events in town recently. between recent fires and between some of the events up on Putney Road. And it's good to think from time to time and to take note of the emergency services folks who work for the town of Brattleboro, the fire department and the police officers, every day put on a badge and put their own personal safety at risk in order to help maintain the peace. And it's something that I think we should all be thankful for. And lastly, I would just like to echo David's point, which is please get out and vote. Vote's Thursday. Thank you.
Next matter on the agenda is select board comments and committee reports. Dave?
John's not here. I told him I would give the committee report, and anybody else who was at the meeting is welcome to comment as well, the police fire meeting. As requested, I think Patrick and the project manager got together and came up with a possible reductions list. I think it's important to point out that these are not being advised yet by the committee. They're looking at options. What they want to do is wait until they've got more solid numbers from the construction manager and the project manager. Is that the right word, construction manager?
Project manager and construction manager, the both of them.
Yeah,
together.
and the architect, so
Yep.
that they're, they know that they're they're reaching the budget, or that they're not already way over budget, and before they offer any suggested cuts. So, but they're on it, and but not yet ready to advise any cuts. The other thing is that the Energy Committee and the project manager met and discussed the energy heat sources and came up with a really elegant combination of heat pump and natural gas solutions for heating the buildings. That's going to save us a lot of money over a long period of time, not just in fuel costs, but in the amount of energy we'll consume in the seasons when it's not really cold. So that's from that committee.
I just, having participated in those meetings, I'd like to add, in the meeting prior, the Energy Committee and the Police and Fire Oversight Committee were pretty much at loggerheads over some decisions for what types of heating sources to use, and I think they really solved it the proper way. They established a subcommittee, populated that with some folks from the Energy Committee and some folks working for the project. They were told to come back with a unanimous recommendation, and in a week's time they were able to do that. So it was a real win-win, and I think they've made some good decisions.
Anybody else on select board committee reports?
I would like to. So I would just like to welcome a couple of members from the Arts Committee and to say that the board has been looking forward to hearing the outcome of your really thoughtful, philosophical, and creative work. And it's been a privilege to sit in. I've been inspired by the content of our last few meetings. And I also just want to echo what David said regarding some of the correspondence. I think it's really important for all of us to keep in mind, particularly when we're going through difficult times as a town, when the budget is tight, when we may disagree philosophically on the way to move forward in terms of how to best serve the town. I think when there's that level of stress, that is more than any time when we need to hang together. And this board is not unwilling to hear any honest feedback. I think we do our best to be transparent, to be respectful of the differences of opinion, but it makes such a difference when that is communicated with respect. So thank you for commenting.
Anybody else? Next matter on the agenda is public participation. If there's anybody here to speak to an item that's not on the agenda, this would be a good time. But everybody I see sitting here is here for an agenda item. So we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is liquor commissioners. We're ready for a motion to convene as liquor commissioners.
We convene as liquor commissioners.
We have a motion to convene as liquor commissioners. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed or abstaining? That carries 4-0. First matter on the liquor commissioners' agenda is to consider liquor and tobacco licenses. I think this is the third or fourth meeting where we've got annual liquor and tobacco license renewals we have three entities that have sort of lagged behind the pack: Avenue Grocery, Q Bar, and Northside Subs and More, all of which are applying for their liquor licenses, a second-class license for Avenue Grocery, and first-class licenses for Q Bar and Northside Subs. From reviewing the materials, there's no violations that any of those businesses have had over the course of the last year, and police and fire, I believe, are all in favor of renewals.
I move we approve renewals of liquor and tobacco licenses for the businesses on the list.
Excellent. Is there any discussion from anybody on the board or anybody who's in attendance? Hearing none, all those in favor of granting these liquor licenses and tobacco licenses, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed or abstaining? That carries 4-0. Next matter on the Liquor Commissioner's agenda is a request for a special event permit for Go America Go Beverages, doing business as Whistle Pig Whiskey, for the Strolling of the Heifers Friday night event on June 6th. Patrick, can you explain this one?
Yes, sir. Go America, Go Beverages, doing business as Whistle Pig Whiskey of Shoreham, Vermont, is seeking to have a special event permit. This allows them to utilize their existing license to sell unopened bottles and to provide sample tastings to the members of the public. They plan on doing this at the River Garden in conjunction with the Strolling of the Heifers. And staff have reviewed the application and have no objections.
Patrick, how many businesses are now seeking or having been granted special event permits for samplings at Strolling of the Heifers?
This would be the second.
Is there a third that's also planning to apply?
Not that I'm aware of,
All right.
but there's still time.
Is this paying or for free?
Paying for samples.
They can certainly buy unopened bottles, and they can receive a free little sample.
I thought it said pay for samples.
The last one was pay for samples,
Okay,
that's why I'm
well, that's,
asking.
yeah, they're not going to be handing out shots, so.
That's my question.
I do believe that they are passing out samples for free. I believe that was the case before, and I believe that's the case now.
Because it says sell by the glass or on offer.
Or open bottle, or offer
May,
samplings.
right.
So, I read it, and maybe wrong, is that they're going to sell the samplings, as opposed to just,
Well, I'd have to double check on that, but it is the same permit as was approved before. I believe that the samplings were actually a freebie, and I could be wrong about that, but I could certainly look into
I
that.
just, I saw the Whistle Pig Whiskey, and I'm thinking,
Yep.
okay, they're going to be handing out shots on.
Well, actually, they do regulate the amount that can be given away based on the type of beverage involved, so that you can give away more wine, you can give away more beer, but you got to give away far less whiskey.
Right.
So if it's whiskey, I believe it's an ounce or less, and with wine, I believe it can be a couple ounces.
And these people are all thoroughly trained and.
Oh, they have their own
understand
license
statutes.
that they'd be operating under.
And their employees will too?
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
Great. I'm happy.
They're subject to the policies that we have.
They are subject to a different set of policies because they're operating under their license.
Okay, very good. And I guess we're ready for a motion on this one?
We approve a special event permit for Go America Go Beverages, doing business as Whistle Pig Whiskey of Shoreham, Vermont, for an event at the Robert H. Gibson River Garden on Friday, June 6th, between 5:30 and 8:30 p.m.
Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed or abstaining? So that carries 4-0. And then I think we have another application for exactly the same thing for the Strolling of the Heifers Maple and Mud Festival on April 26th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Would this one be essentially the same in all
Identical.
material respects?
In all material respects, this will be identical,
Just a different day, just like 2.5 weeks from now,
at a different date and time.
right?
In conjunction with a different activity. Strolling seems to be ramping up the number of activities that they're engaging with. So,
Somebody else can make a motion?
I'll make a motion. I move we approve a special event permit for Go America, Go Beverages, doing business as Whistle Pig Whiskey of Shoreham, Vermont, for an event at the Robert H. Gibson River Garden on Saturday, April 26th, from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed or abstaining? So that carries 4-0 as well. And I believe that's all the business under liquor commissioners. So we're ready for a motion to adjourn as liquor
Move we
commissioners.
adjourn as the commissioners.
We have motion to adjourn as liquor commissioners. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed or abstaining? That carries 4-0. Next matter on the agenda is the financial report. And looks like John O'Connor's not here, so I call on Patrick.
thank you very much, David. I can walk you through a little bit about the financial statements, and hopefully you can't throw too many curveballs at me. But I would like to point out that I asked John O'Connor to put together a memo, which was attached to his typical memo, just talking about our year-end expectations and where we see ourselves coming forward at the end of the year, which by now I think we should all be recognizing that we should be anticipating a deficit, and a significant deficit. And the reason for that is manyfold. But we've talked about this several times, and I just asked him to try and clarify this. In the fiscal year 14 budget, we passed that without a transfer to capital. That $765,000 for capital spending, which was approved in this year, however, was originally in the capital plan. Now, I'm going to get tongue-tied trying to explain this, but I'll do my best to do it. The lesson here is that the town needs to pay very close attention to how it structures its budgets and how it words its articles. And there was, in this past year, there was an inconsistency that will forever put the fiscal year 13 and the fiscal year 14 budgets together. Last year, you'll recall, we finished the year with a roughly $800,000 surplus. This year, we're anticipating minimally a $765,000 deficit. It's that same money. The fact is, we had an article which contemplated using $765,000 of unassigned fund balance. The unassigned fund balance is only in the general fund. So in order to be able to follow that warning, we had to move the funds from the capital fund to the general fund, and we've been moving them back. This is going to result in an unbudgeted deficit. We'll talk about this more when John gets back, I'm sure.
That's for sure.
So the March financials, as you'll know, as of March 31st, we were 3/4 of the way through the fiscal year. The general fund was a little over 78.4% of actual spending, and that's, of course, inclusive of this transfer to capital, which is partially why it is above the 75%. And then the utility fund was roughly at about 68.5%, and parking fund was at 75.9% of their expenses at this point in time, which is 75% of the way through the fiscal year. If there are any specific questions about any of the line items anywhere in the budgets, I'd be happy to entertain your questions.
Any questions from anybody on the board? Any questions from anybody who's in attendance? Howard?
Just quickly, is that a real deficit, or is it just a book deficit?
I'll respond. Last year, at town meeting 2013, we voted to take $765,000 that had accumulated in the capital fund and apply it towards the deficit. But the way the article was worded, we wound up transferring that money into the general fund and then needing to transfer it back out of the general fund. And so last year there was a $765,000 surplus, and this year there's a $765,000 deficit, which essentially balance each other out. So it's a bookkeeping matter, not an actual deficit. There is some additional money that we have to take from the general fund that's been authorized by town meeting to pay for the repairs to Elm Street and for the work up on Watasticate that will actually push that deficit even higher, but that's also been authorized by town meeting to pay out of the surplus, which were additional unanticipated expenses.
Well put.
Excellent. Any other questions? Then the next agenda item is staffing level review. So I'll explain the procedure here. The select board made the decision probably 2 or 3 months ago that in light of our significant tax burden and our significant expenses, that we wanted to review staffing levels before hires are being made by the various departments so that we can maintain and improve our knowledge about the details of what's going on in individual departments and make sure that we're comfortable with staffing levels as a whole throughout the town and its departments. The process that we've used is that we've gone into executive session before each of the meetings where there's been a staffing level review in order to make sure that none of the issues that we're going to be talking about or inquiring about have specific personnel ramifications, because personnel issues may be confidential. So we have discussed this topic in executive session with the goal of avoiding any risk of confidential information being made public, and now everything that could be said in public is going to be said in public. So I think at this point, what we're going to do is start by calling on Patrick, who's got his hand up.
Thank you, sir. Included in the board packet was a memo relating to the Brattleboro Police Department, also to planning services. I notice Rod's here, and he'll probably talk next. I outlined for the board a little bit about the structure of how the police department and later planning services is staffed. I can just quickly run down through some of this. The police department is staffed with 3 shifts. Each shift has 5 patrol officers, a sergeant, and a lieutenant. The department is also staffed with 4 detectives, 3 administrative support staff, and of course the captain and the chief, who are here this evening. And I guess what I would ask the captain and the chief perhaps to talk a little bit about is the process that goes into hiring a police officer, which is long and complicated and has many steps. And so we will be seeking to put a new recruit into the training academy, and Chief, maybe you can talk us through about that.
Sure. Gee, I wonder if, one of the things that we read the memo, I went through a bunch of stuff, and I wonder if you would, I'm particularly interested in hearing about the process, the police academy process, and how long it takes to hire somebody, and also the growing volume of calls.
Sure. The police academy gets offered 2 times a year. It usually starts around August and February, so we have 2 opportunities to get someone in there. Prior to hiring someone, we have to look at whether they're certified in the state of Vermont or someone else, and if they're eligible to be wavered into the academy, there's a way you can do that. If they are not, have any police experience, we hire them raw, and they have to go through the full Vermont Police Academy. So what that means is we start with the application process. We take their application either online or in the mail, or they can drop it off. We then schedule interviews a couple times a year to make sure we have a pool of people ready to go. Once those interviews are done, we'll score them. We'll select some to continue on the process. From there, we'll move to psychological exams, MMPI, the multi-personal exam. We'll do a financial and background checks on them to see if everything pans out, and we'll actually do polygraphs. Before we actually do a polygraph on someone, we do a conditional offer of employment. By law, we have to do that. Once they pass all that, and they do a physical and medical exam, then they can be hired on. Normally what we do is we hire someone on about 2 weeks before the police academy to get them, just get their feet wet, introduce them to the town, introduce them to the department, and let them learn a little bit before the academy. They then go through the full-time academy. It's about 16 weeks up there before they graduate. After they graduate, then they come home. It's another 12 weeks on field training program in-house. So it's a long process once someone is hired before they're actually out on their own. Because it's a very expensive for the town, what we do is we have applicants sign a 3-year contract that says if from the time they're hired, if they leave within that 3-year period, they agree to pay back the town a percentage of what it costs to actually get them hired, trained, and out on their own.
Thanks.
The officer we're losing here, Officer Godino, came with us in 2007. He's been with us about 7 years. He's a field training officer, so we're going to have to look to replace that position with another officer. Call volume is steadily increasing. Yearly, we have about 10,000 calls for service. That does not include motor vehicle stops. Usually, on the average, we do about 500 motor vehicle stops a month. Every month in my monthly report, you'll see the number that we do. So they're very active, both in calls for service and self-initiated motor vehicle stops.
Thanks.
Can we also talk a little bit about staffing in terms of what individual shifts look like? I understand that there are 3 shifts of 7, which include 5 patrol officers, a sergeant and a lieutenant, and then we have 4 detectives and chief and captain, who are both here today. My understanding is that on the overnight shift, for example, there's probably just 3 officers working, and it can be a combination of patrol or lieutenant or sergeant, but then during the daytime hours, we may have as many as 8 or 9 certified officers on shift at any given time. So can you just please tell us what does daytime shift, evening shift, and then overnight shift look like?
By union contract, we have to have a minimum staffing of 3 sworn police officers on duty at all times of the day and night. During the daytime, we have extra sworn officers because all the detectives, Captain Fitzgerald and myself, are sworn police officers, so that number goes up. The way the schedule works downstairs is there's a built-in overlap, so the day shift overlaps with the afternoon shift. So for 2 hours during that overlap, you may have 6 sworn officers as well as Captain Fitzgerald, myself, and the detectives on duty. You'll have a lot of officers. The afternoons and midnights, again, overlaps for 2 hours, so you have an increase of 6 officers, a minimum of 6 officers on duty then. So there's different times during the day and evening and nights when the call volume is high, when we have a built-in overlap.
Excellent. Any other questions from anybody on the board?
This is like a more, not specific to this, but just an information that I'm interested in. Where do you get, like, are most of the people that apply to be a police officer in Brattleboro, are they from Vermont or are they from other places? Like,
We get applications from Florida, Colorado, all over the place.
Are there
not a lot actually from Brattleboro. A few. Out of the 4 recent ones we've got some relatively local officers.
Okay.
So
are there more Vermonters that apply than out-of-staters, or does it just depend?
I think it's more out-of-staters that
Okay.
apply. If people are looking for police jobs, they go to the Vermont Police Academy website and they look there. That's one of our primarily advertising places to go.
Any other questions? So the general procedure we've used is we get this information, but it's really for informational purposes and the like, and I don't believe at this point that there's any particular action that we're taking one way or the other at this time. So is there any inquiry from anybody who's in attendance besides us on the board? Cool. And the next one is planning.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Next up, obviously, is Rod Francis. He's the Planning Services Director. The Planning Services Department is a much smaller department, although no less powerful. It is staffed by Rod Francis as the Planning Director, Sue Fillion, who is the planner. There is a zoning administrator, and then there is a clerk position. And the clerk position has recently been vacated. The clerk's position is obviously a fundamental and essential component of a modern administrative office. And I'm actually just going to kick it over to Rod and ask him to talk a little bit about the importance of the clerk position and the function of the department.
This position represents 25% of the available labor in the office, so we don't really have a choice. That position is pivotal. The clerk position is the interface between the public and the department, and often the public and the entire organization. So the requirements of the position call for the person to be highly knowledgeable of the town's overall services, who's responsible for which functions, how to navigate the website and guide somebody over the phone or via email to the appropriate office or person that can respond effectively to their inquiry, to help them complete technically detailed applications that require coaching people and thinking in 3 dimensions instead of 2, and then being able to represent that in only 2 dimensions and do it electronically now. And it also requires noting considerable skills in diplomacy and psychology, so that what could be extremely stressful situations are diffused and handled appropriately. If this person is actually absent for any length of time, then all those functions are shared between the remaining 75% of the labor force in that office, and it becomes dysfunctional. At that point, from experience, we typically fail meeting our minimum statutory requirements, which is, at the very least, making sure that all the Development Review Board meetings are warned appropriately, that the Development Review Board proceedings are recorded appropriately and in a timely fashion, and that we meet the minimum obligations of statute and our own ordinances.
Any questions from anybody on the board about this position here? Anybody who's in attendance have any questions about this staffing issue? Thank you for that overview.
Thank you, Rob.
Good luck finding somebody.
Thanks.
Next matter on the agenda is a grant application, GH, oh no, it's award the bid for the police cruiser. Sorry. Gene.
We are requesting permission to award a bid. We did a sealed bid for a cruiser that's in the capital improvement plan. We put out a sealed bid for 2014 Ford Police Interceptor. We received 3 sealed bids. We opened those and evaluated them. 2 of the received bids did not meet the bid specifications. They spec'd out a 2015 Ford Interceptor. One company that did give us the bid specs we were looking for is a Imperial Municipal Partners out of Milford, Mass. So we're requesting permission to award the bid contract to them. The total price of the vehicle will be $33,449. That comes with a 5-year, 100,000-mile bumper-to-bumper warranty. And we will be trading in a vehicle which are going to give us $2,750 for.
Dave?
Did you get any communication from MHQ or Roundtree Ford about why they didn't meet the bid specs?
No.
I'd like to, given a previous experience with the backhoe, I'd like to table this until our next meeting and ask the interim town manager to contact these 2 bidders and see why if they don't have a 2014, so they can actually meet the specs. We only have 1 real bid here, and typically the previous year's model is discounted a little bit, and given the trade-in, at least from Roundtree, we may be able to save some money by making a phone call, basically.
Can we talk a little bit then about the procurement policy and the bid policy as to whether proceeding that way raises any concerns?
Fine with me.
Yeah, I just want to hear from Patrick. I mean, if we've got...
There's, I believe, no immediate urgency other than, this would put us out a couple of weeks, but that's not terribly problematic.
My question really has to do with if we had a bid procedure and we had bids that were supposed to meet specifications and they came in at a certain time and they were opened at a certain time, is there any reason in our procedures why we would not then contact some of the bids that didn't meet specs, or bidders who didn't meet specs.
Well, I certainly was heading for that.
Right.
I think the issue that the town may find itself in is we openly publicize the criteria in that, you know, we state we're looking for a 2014 car. It's got and there's a whole laundry list, particularly when it comes to police cars, of equipment that goes along with one of these purchases. So each of the vendors had the same opportunity to inspect the specifications and to pitch forward with a proposal. We may find ourselves in some legal jeopardy if we, in a sense, look to others and say, well, you didn't meet the specifications, but we'd like to try and give you another chance. So I could certainly, I understand that if the board was interested in proceeding that direction, I would think it would make sense to consult legal counsel, but it raises some concerns.
And that's why I asked. I'm not
Yeah.
opposed to doing
No,
it.
yeah, I get
We
it.
did have this experience before. I also wonder why is it that we, and I guess I'll direct this to Chief Captain, why is it that we particularly would ask for a bid for a 2014 rather than 2015?
What we'd like to do is keep the bids in the capital year that we get them, and we'd like to get the most mileage out of the vehicle. That's why we do that year. What we have run into in the past is they've called after the bids have been opened, and well, we can get to this year, we don't want to change it. It just delays it and delays it. So we try to keep it and get the most mileage out of the current vehicles we have. The two bids that came in that didn't meet the bid specs, they're both in excess of what we have in the capital improvement plan by $2,000 to $3,000.
Yeah, I think, I noticed that, certainly, that the bid you offered is the lowest one, although it's the only one that actually meets the specs. It just seems that it's worth, and again, if you get a different, and I understand too now that, I assume these are public now.
Oh, yeah.
So everybody's
absolutely.
seen,
Oh,
so obviously the other competitors could see what the other bid was, and then they could
No
just
doubt.
come in a little bit under it. So I understand there's an equity issue there. My question is purely based on getting the best possible price we can. And when somebody just doesn't get the bid right, my question, based again on experience, is that I would rather know why they didn't give us the right bid, rather than just go ahead and let this go, and then maybe find out later on that we could have saved a few $1,000s.
well, this is the lowest bid. I don't know if
Yeah.
that was
It's the
clear.
only bid, because the other ones didn't meet the specs, so we only have one bid.
Wow. Can I
It's
Yeah,
the
wait,
lowest
wait,
bid
wait,
Yeah,
and the
it's
only
way too much
bid.
detail at this
Wait,
point.
Kate?
Well, can I say, whatever, and I don't mean to go backwards, but whatever happened with that Caterpillar thing? Did we ever actually do anything? I know we talked about it, but did we ever call and,
I actually did a little investigation
Yeah.
into that, and to be honest, before I would update the board on that, I'd have to sort of refresh my memory.
Okay,
It's not immediately coming to mind.
okay, I'm just trying to remember, like, have we already set precedent that we've opened bids again? Or, you know what I mean? We haven't.
I don't think there's an issue of precedence to be concerned about here.
Okay.
I think the issue is liability.
I know, but I was just trying to remember, like, if we had already done this. Do you see what I'm asking? Like,
We certainly haven't had this conversation.
no, that's what I'm saying. Did I miss something? Like, I was like,
Well, with the Caterpillar bid, I had asked about that.
right.
And because it was such a disparity, it was
Right.
$27,000. And I asked about it, and it turned out that the contract had been let the next morning, so it was too late.
Okay.
And what I should have done was to motion move to table it so that the questions could be asked, and
Okay.
the additional communication could happen.
Okay.
So that's what I'm asking.
Which is what we're doing this time.
But
Exactly. I learned my
You know,
lesson.
I think something that the board may wish to think about, though, is that vendors are responsible for
Right.
reviewing the bid documents and for putting forward a proposal that's consistent with the bid documents. And I don't know that we wish to be holding all that many hands. If you can't put forward a bid that meets the specifications, then we move on.
Right, and it's right here. I mean, I'm looking at it right here, the request for the sealed bid, and it specifically says in at least two places on the front, 2014 Cruiser, 2014 Ford, all-wheel drive. I mean, it's very, like here, it's not hidden. I mean, I could see if it was like in small print on page 10, but to me, it seems like it's right here. And that's just my only concern. Where does it end? You know, do we, every time we do a bid, do we second guess it? I don't know.
So perhaps at this point, we could table this and do a little more research into whether or not it's fair process.
Well, the process is fair. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. The process is fair.
Right.
You know, the question is, do you wish to incur liability by giving a second bite at the apple to somebody who didn't respond appropriately to a request for proposals? And I think doing so may put, who is it, Imperial
Yeah.
Municipal
something or other,
partners.
Yeah.
municipal partners,
Yeah.
it may raise some concern.
Yeah, I'm not for tabling it, and I'm not for changing it. That's just me, because I just think we need to move forward, because now I said there were 2 places on the front page. There are 3 pages on the front page where it says it's a 2014 vehicle. You know, so I just feel really hesitant to keep, you know, if we don't like the bid, we go to somewhere else. I just think it's a bad way to go. But again, I'm not a lawyer, I don't know. That's just my gut. It feels wrong.
Well,
What
as I
would
said,
the board like me to do?
Mike,
I'd
want
just
to
like to-
use the mic so that you're on TV too.
I'd just like to put my 2 cents in here. I would have a real problem going back to the other bidders, only because department heads put hours into writing bid specs. And I know when we do a truck spec, we write it right from the ground up. And if a manufacturer doesn't meet a spec for whatever reason, it really could cause some issues. And to say, well, you don't meet the spec, but if you take another look at the bid and see if you could do better, I think we're asking for trouble. I think that you're putting the department heads in the town at a great risk when you do this.
Well, just to clarify, I'm not asking, what I was asking was to communicate with the other bidders and ask them why they didn't bid on the 14. And we may find out we don't have them. We may find out any number of things, but I'd like to find out there may be some reason that they don't bid on a 14. I really don't know. I just know I had one experience where the communication was not thorough. The bid was, the specs were very clear. They were practically taken out of a manual or a catalog. But the communication broke down in the process, and it cost the town a lot of money. And I want to avoid that happening again. So I'm asking for a couple of phone calls and a conversation with Bob, with the town attorney. That's all I'm asking for.
Can I just, maybe you
Go
can
ahead,
talk
Kate.
about, I'm just
No, you
wondering
go
though,
ahead.
will that change the decision this time around? I mean, we can sit there and table it and then call these people up and say, did you not understand it was a 2014 we wanted? And they say, no, we knew it was a 2014, but we chose to bid on a 2015. I mean, I'm wondering, is that something we talk about, you know, with these people afterwards, just, hey, we're reevaluating our bidding process. Did you guys not understand what we were looking for? I
I
don't know
think
if
the safest procedure would be to award the bid. If you're interested, you know, the conversations could occur after the fact.
And do it more as we're planning for the, you know, are we doing something that people aren't understanding in the future to change how we put out a bid or something? You know, I don't know.
This isn't the first time we've done this.
No, that's what,
We
but
do
I
this
just,
all the time.
no, I do that. That's what I'm saying. I'm just saying is if David's concerned about it, maybe a way to work this out is if we're wondering why they didn't do a 2014 and they did a 2015, is to just call them up afterwards and say, we're just wondering. But I don't think we should change, I mean, I'm for all not changing this.
Chief?
If the award went to Imperial IMP, with our notifications to the ones that did not get the bid, we could notify them that the reason they didn't get it is because they didn't meet the bid specs. It's very clear.
My recollection is that this situation is a little bit different than the situation we
absolutely.
had with the Caterpillar, because this
bid that we're being asked to accept is one that not only meets the spec, but also is the lowest price.
Yep.
I think there was a real valid concern that was expressed last time when we were getting ready to purchase, what was it, the backhoe?
Yes.
The Caterpillar backhoe, because it was a question whether the specs were written to a specific manufacturer and brand of truck rather than to the performance of the vehicle itself. And then there were questions about the communications that I think led up to the bids. And I certainly think that in a situation where there's a question about performance of the vehicles and whether different brands might satisfy the bid, and where there's a question whether we really might be saving money by reopening, that it might be prudent in those circumstances to delay to have further inquiry. I still don't quite understand why it is that we prefer a 2014 to a 2015. That really wasn't clear to me, but nevertheless, I am understanding that we're getting a vehicle that's new, that's got essentially no miles on it, and we're being asked to accept the low bid that meets the specification. So at this point, I'm in favor of proceeding, but it's totally with respect to your request to table. So my inquiry is whether you want to make the motion to table now so we can vote on it.
No, I think we'll go with the motion as it is. I think the points you made are valid, and it is the lowest bid, and I don't think it's going to come in lower, but I'm going to be pretty cautious about specs and bidding processes, given the experience we had.
I hope you'll raise it next time, because it
Don't
wasn't.
worry.
Yeah, please do. And it might be useful also, if you notice this, to raise it before the meeting, so that if there's any further inquiry to be had, that the information is available at the meeting. So if you ask the interim town manager, once we get the binders, if it can be raised on a Monday, then we might be able to have the information back by Tuesday, so we've got more information rather than having to table. So that's a good idea as well. Is there any further discussion about this right now from anybody on the board or anybody who's in attendance? All right, so then we're ready for a motion.
I move that we approve the purchase of a 2014 AWD Ford Police Cruiser in the amount of $33,449 from Imperial Municipal Partners.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed or abstaining? That carries 4-0. Next matter on the agenda is the grant application for the GHS Seatbelt Safety and DUI Enforcement Grant. Chief.
Just one's Captain.
Captain.
I would like the board to consider a grant application from the Governor Highway Safety Program. If you would, in your paperwork, there's one typo I'd like to bring to your attention. Under the DUI grant, it should read $16,560. I think that's inverted. It might read 065 instead of 560. So your DUI should be $16,560, and your highway safety should be $10,560, for a total of $27,120. I believe your administrative report has it as $26,616.
So instead of 26,616, it's 27,120.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay.
And basically what this is a grant that we get yearly for the past several years. We broke it down into two categories, the DUI, driving under the influence, and general highway safety, occupants, seat belts, things of that nature. And what we do is we highlight areas of the town that are most concern of ours, and then we submit this grant to the Governor Highway Safety. And this is a statewide grant from all the towns, and then they divvy up the funds that they get from the federal appropriately as they see fit. So realistically, we're asking for $27,120, but we're going to get what they'll give us.
And it's essentially for additional patrols to do DUI and seatbelt and other
That
traffic safety
saturation
enforcement?
patrols, yes, sir, checkpoints, things of that nature.
Right. Any questions from anybody on the board? Anybody who's in attendance have any questions? Well, they're ready for a motion to approve the grant application.
So moved.
All right, so the motion is to approve grant application in the amount of $27,120 to the Vermont Department of Public Safety Governor Highway Safety Grant Program for support of local enforcement of DUI, seatbelt, and other driving violations. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed or abstaining? That carries 4-0. Thank you, gentlemen. Next matter on the agenda is a grant application for the, it says LSTA, it has something to do with libraries. I don't know what LSTA stands for. Patrick?
Yes, sir. The Brooks Memorial Library is requesting authorization to apply for a grant for $2,212. This is in support of the sharing of information between libraries for activities such as the interlibrary loan. The grant is being provided by the Vermont Department of Libraries, and like I say, it's $2,212 to support resource sharing.
Is there any discussion?
You know what LSTA is? Library Services and Technology Act.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm looking.
It was driving me crazy, yeah. It's in there.
Yeah, there I see. Okay. You want to make the motion?
Sure.
Excellent.
I move that we approve a grant application in the amount of $2,212 for the Vermont Department of Libraries to support resource sharing.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed or abstaining? That carries 4-0. Next matter on the agenda is the Vermont Department of Emergency Management and Homeland Security. It's a grant, it's an accepting and appropriating a grant for almost $60,000. Chief?
So back in early February, the board approved that I applied for a Vermont Communications grant in the amount of $61,529 to buy 35 portables, 40 pagers, and the Mayday decoder. Near the end of March, I received word that we were awarded the grant in the amount of $59,739. What they awarded us was the 35 portables. I think the agenda says 34, but it's actually 35 portables and 40 pagers. They removed the Mayday decoder because it's a piece of new equipment. It's not a replacement for something we already have. So I'd like to ask the board tonight to accept that award with the understanding that VCOM does have some money left over in their program, and they're going to issue another round of grant money for new equipment, so we'll actually have a chance to get that Mayday decoder in the next round.
Patrick? Yes, sir. As the board may recall, the fire department and the town was authorized to apply for a grant to Department of Homeland Security, which is this one, and we also applied for the same equipment to FEMA. The nice thing about this particular grant from Emergency Management and Homeland Security is that it comes without a match, whereas the other grant, as you'll recall, required a 25% cash match.
Right. I've also received word that actually the portables and the portables and the Mayday decoder did not clear the process in FEMA because the portables weren't old enough. So they were, but I do know that our air packs have cleared round one of peer review, so we're still in the running for the air packs.
And that's what I was going to ask. Thank you for responding to that. Can you just reiterate what was the application for the air packs, and how many air packs were we looking for, and what does it mean that we've made the first cut?
Sure. We applied for almost, I believe it was, you're taxing my memory now, but around $400,000 to replace 31 to 32 of our complete cache of air packs, plus all of our portable radios. The portable radios were eliminated from the process
At the FEMA level.
at the FEMA level because they weren't old enough, and it was actually done in a computer scan. So they require equipment to be 15 years old, and the portables are 8 years old. But I have talked to a representative from FEMA, and our air packs cleared the computer scan and also have been through round one of what they call peer review, where a panel sits down and reads the grant application. And we've got through round one, so we're still in the running for the air packs.
Excellent. All right, that would be good news if we get those air packs.
Well, big time.
Right, because otherwise we're paying for them in cash because we need them one way or the other, right?
Yes.
Excellent. Well, then, I move that we accept an appropriated grant in the amount of $59,739 from the Vermont Division of Emergency Management and Homeland Security for the replacement of 34 portable radios and 40 pagers. Is there any further?
It should be 35.
35 portable radios
Yes.
and 40 pagers. Is there any further discussion or any inquiry from anybody on the board or anybody who's in attendance? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed or abstaining? That carries 4-0. And then, Mike, maybe you tell us what it means to be forest fire warden. That'd be the next item on the agenda, to appoint town forest fire warden.
The state of Vermont requires that each municipality have a forest fire warden. And in a town that has a career fire department, and usually involve volunteers too, usually they ask the fire chief to be the forest fire warden. And in my case, basically, it's just doing my job. So it's a no-brainer.
All right. Excellent. Is there any question or comment? We're ready for motion.
I move that we appoint Chief Mike Bacassi to the position of Forest Fire Warden for a 5-year term beginning on July 1st, 2014 and concluding June 30th, 2019.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed or abstaining? That carries 4-0. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Next matter on the agenda is a PACE update.
Ah, yes, the
So,
PACE update.
at town meeting 2013, town meeting representatives authorized us to form a PACE district, and after legal and accounting, finance department review of the proposed PACE documents, it was concluded that the materials or the proposed documents contain significant lack of clarity about how the process would work. And so we have not yet begun PACE program here in Brattleboro, but at Mrs. Skoll's request, we asked the Vermont League of Cities and Towns to gather up some information for us about how other towns are dealing with the program. And we have a very nice report here. And Patrick, if you want to briefly summarize it, and Dave, if you have any questions.
So, we put this on the agenda. Dave asked for this to be on the agenda to give a little bit of an update. So there's a couple of things I wanted to make everybody aware of. The first is, as David pointed out, that there continues to be some concern between the finance department and with our legal counsel on the manner in which the program description has been written by VEIC, which puts the town in sort of a bit of a bind. We can develop whatever program we wish to develop. However, we don't have the staff resources for that, and it's not something we signed on for. So we're fortunate in a sense in that VEIC has put together what is an otherwise very attractive program. They will, at the expense of the borrower, manage the program on our behalf. They will process applications. They will determine eligibility. They will issue bills and collect payments on a monthly basis. This now has little or no correlation to your tax bill. They will work directly with the property owner to receive payments. They will coordinate the recording of the documents into the land records. They will verify that eligible work has been completed, and they will raise all the funds to administer the program. So from the standpoint of a municipality, this is all music to our ears. The trouble with all this has been clarified by our legal counsel is that the town does not perform any function in this process that would justify the utilization of a tax sale. It's almost as if the program is too good to be true. So, in terms of an update, what I would inform the board is that we have switched tacks and are now, I have asked Bob to develop some draft language that we're hoping to propose to VEIC that would allow the town to issue a special assessment following delinquency from when we receive notification from VEIC that a potential borrower is not paying it back. So, for example, VEIC provides a $10,000 loan to a particular property owner in the town of Brattleboro. They're making payments, everything's fine, everything's working well. They cease making payments. At the end of 90 days, they would notify the town of Brattleboro that somebody is now delinquent. However, in having them be delinquent with VEIC is not the same as the town imposing a special assessment. So what we would propose to do is to issue a special assessment upon notification from the town, wait a sufficient period of time, I think we're contemplating 30 days, and once it's delinquent with the town, then proceed to a tax sale. So we're drawing that up in a sense as an amendment to the program guidelines with VEIC, and we're hoping that they will find that to be acceptable because it appears like there is at least some hope that we can put together a successful program. Now, in addition, one of the things after our last discussion, I reached out to the League of Cities and Towns and I asked them if they wouldn't mind speaking with 21 or 23 different towns that have put together or signed on to the PACE program and to see what, if any, review had been taking place. And so unfortunately, only 6 towns responded to our inquiry. But there are a couple of points that sort of stand out to me. Among them, only the town of Dorset conducted a legal review of the documents. And so as soon as Mr. Fisher has the opportunity, I would hope that he would be in touch. Well, I know that he will be in touch with their town attorney to just have a discussion and see what, if any, concerns that we have raised have they thought of and thought through or worked around, or perhaps they can enlighten him as to why perhaps he shouldn't be so concerned. But there, the one thing which is kind of interesting as you look through this, there just appears to be somewhat widespread differing views as to how matters are going to be handled across these various towns. And the question that really strikes me most of all is on the second page in the column second from the right, which is for what value would the town be making an assessment? And we've been given some guidance that if we were to impose an assessment and then ultimately take someone through the tax sale process, that we would be doing that on the value of the unpaid portion of the PACE loan. What's interesting to me is to see that some other towns have indicated that they would conduct a tax sale on the town-assessed value of the property, which, from what we understand, would not be acceptable. So there is some There's a bit of a lack of clarity out there, I think, amongst the municipalities on how best to implement a PACE program. I think it's still, we're still working in this direction, and hopefully with our amended language, if BEIC is agreeable, then we can adopt the program as they have contemplated and hopefully move forward in the future.
Yeah, Dave, I have something to say too
I
after.
think, I just, having just received this and just glanced at it quickly, I'd reinforce what Patrick said. There's been a lot of concern in the community, and a number of people have expressed some frustration, and myself included, in why this is taking so long. I think what this points out is, aside from the fact that only 6 towns responded, which is a little frustrating, but
Yeah, we can't
looking at
control.
this chart, 6 is plenty to find out that actually the question about special assessments that was raised here, there are 4 different responses here, and they're all different. One of them is unsure, which is not really an acceptable response. And then in the collection situation, how does the town prove non-payment of tax? Again, some towns said, well, PACE does it, Efficiency Vermont does it, unsure, or it goes through a credit partner. This is a new program. Obviously, there's not a template for how it's supposed to be administered or how these questions are answered. And so I hope that our amendment will help them put together a template so that it's easier for other people. Because once this is all done, it will be an opportunity for property owners to save money, to reduce their energy costs and get payback over a long period of time. So it's something we definitely want our residents to be able to have access to. But it's
Not ready for prime
not
time.
ready for prime time. Yeah, when 5 towns could be 4 different answers, and the 5th one doesn't answer. It's kind of like, okay, we're not ready.
Not just that, I mean, what strikes me most about this survey responses is that of 6 towns, only 1 did legal review. Of 6 towns, none did an auditing or an accounting review. And although we have been getting correspondence suggesting that we're dragging our heels in making PACE loans available in the town, none of these 6 towns have had any applications or loaned any money under the PACE program.
Maybe a blessing for them that they haven't.
And as to the other issues, there's no unanimity of response about how the thing is going to be administered. So I think at this point, it's prudent for us to continue working before we sign on to the program. But thanks for gathering that, and thanks for pressing on the table. Any questions or comments about PACE? All right, next matter on the agenda is the Arts Committee.
Yeah.
So what I remember is that Donna gave us a report about the Arts Committee 4 or 6 weeks ago and said the Arts Committee wanted to come talk to us about what's going on.
That's right.
And so we put them on the agenda, and if you all want to come up to the table
Please, come
and
up, yep.
sit around the table, everybody from the Arts Committee, if you want to do that. We're hoping that this agenda item will last about 20 minutes, so please guide your comments accordingly.
You need one more chair.
And I think what I'll do is, Kate, Ms. Anderson, I'll ask you please to just start by telling us what is it that you want to present and what's everybody going to talk to us about.
I will do that. First, I'll introduce us. I'm Kate Anderson. I chair the Town Arts Committee. Doug Cox, Nick Biddle, Hugh Keelan, John Wilmerding, and Jacob Allen Roberts is not here tonight. He's unable to be here. What we are basically here to do is to listen to you and to ask you what your visions and ideas are for the Town Arts Committee. So you've, and I would also like to make appreciation for Donna McComber, who is our Select Board liaison, and we very much appreciate her participation. You've received a reasonably thick packet from us. It is unusual, probably, for a committee to present individual statements to you, but I think it speaks to how the arts function. TAC is probably a microcosm of this sector. Each of us is deeply invested, each on individual courses. Unlike a department with a director with staff and place such as the Recreation and Parks, the arts here work through a plethora of mainly nonprofit organizations, diverse funding mechanisms, and individual artists. So speaking with one voice is never simple. To advance the policies and goals of the town plan, I support and recommend further efforts on building the infrastructure outlined in Policy 8.3 in the town plan, which advocates for a comprehensive information sharing network. There are, however, collaborations emerging, a Harmony Lot Arts Hub, artist forums held at the Works Bakery, arts compendiums have been spearheaded by the Arts Council of Windham County, and the Core Arts produced the Atlas of Cultural Assets, which describes very well in narrative form the various ways this sector works. Probably the best visual I've seen of that is on this page. You all have one of these, I believe, and you may remember this particular page. It shows, it's called A Web of Connectivity. There are any number of possibilities, ideas, projects, mosaics, songs, festivals. Public art is a first step in making headway on accessibility to the arts. Town arts committees are not so common, not even in Vermont. We're here to hear your ideas and visions regarding how we might better serve. I'll leave off with this, and please substitute select board for mayor. Visionary.
Some would have it the other way.
Visionary mayors, select board, are the primary source of initiative in regional economies. The weavers who bring together the threads of the arts, historic preservation, economic development, housing, transportation, and education to create the fabric of placemaking. Without the weaver, the arts are simply a single thread. That's Kip Bergstrom, our Connecticut neighbor to the south, Department of Economic and Community Development. And with that, I'm going to ask if others on the committee have things that they would like to say. I think they do.
Why don't we start with Doug?
It's great to be here, and thank you for appointing a town arts committee to do the tasks that we've been charged with, and I think with the town plan, a list of goals that have been adopted by you, the select board, representing the vision and direction of this town. Many of them relate to the arts. That's a foundation that we're working from. I'd like to just take a minute to put Brattleboro in context. The other hat that I wear is the president of the Arts Council of Windham County. And we've been involved with the Core Arts Project, again, the Brattleboro-centric, and looking at trying to understand the arts sector in Brattleboro and realizing that Brattleboro is a hub. And it doesn't make sense to look at Brattleboro as a single entity, that it is part of a wider community that extends throughout Windham County. I think with that comes opportunities. It may be that there are also responsibilities that come with being a hub. I know that the select board are very familiar with the economic responsibilities that the town deals with every day, and fire and safety and other things that relate to being a hub. In Windham County, this hub of arts and arts organizations represents probably between $35 and $40 million per year in economic activity. We're dealing with 100 or more organizations. We're dealing with 1,000 workers. in the arts sector, some of whom are very part-time and some of whom are much more than full-time. So I think my message is that Brattleboro has a real opportunity. It is in the middle of a very vibrant arts community, and the town can take advantage of that. My view is that that's what the Town Arts Committee is here to do, is to help the town take advantage of that. I think that your guidance in what areas are right, what we as a committee can do to help the town move forward would be very much appreciated at this time.
Good evening. Thanks for having us here. My name is Nick Biddle. I got to Brattleboro very recently, July of 2013. I'm the co-owner of Outrageous One, a new gallery on Elliott Street that on the backside of Butts, the Harmony lot. And we, my partner and I, Gail Weitz, and I donated 25% of our space to the Arts Council of Windham County so that they have an office space that's abutting the Harmony lot. Perhaps for that generosity, I'm not sure, but very quickly, upon our arrival, Gail and I found that the arts community embraced us immediately and did its best to integrate us very quickly. Otherwise, I wouldn't be sitting on this committee, not having actually talked to all of you yet, for instance. And then in sort of getting to learn the role of this committee and reading through the cultural atlas and the town plan, it's overwhelming the centrality of the arts in Brattleboro's economy and the intention of the town, select board, the town plan, et cetera, to utilize that centrality for economic development. And so it strikes me as now a question of connecting the dots, how to create connection between the existing resources with existing opportunities to enhance the place of the arts and Brattleboro's economy through the arts as a sort of trademark. And one opportunity strikes me, for instance, that just sort of provides sort of an example of something that I think could be replicated in different places, and it has to do with the Brooks House. Right now, the Brooks House is under construction. We know that Vermont, the Community College of Vermont and the Vermont Technical College will have classroom space there, right on the Harmony parking lot, right across from the Arts Council of Windham County, in the midst of 5 and 6 galleries, including Outrageous One. There is no more central space. Many of the plans that I see envision coordinations, collaborations, consortiums, if you will, between different sectors, say the arts and education. And here's a great example. We have the Brooks House, we have classroom space, and the Arts Council of Windham County has already developed an initiative to create an academic program between the University of Massachusetts Extension Service, utilizing Vermont Community College, or Community College of Vermont, to create an entrepreneurial core course. So there are all the pieces together, and what we are lacking is money. And that sounds familiar, I bet. And so also what we're lacking is a certain sense of unification, perhaps, about how the select board can help in this process. And so just off the top of my head, it strikes me as given this opportunity to perhaps construct an arts and education collaboration in a central location of Brattleboro, thereby conforming to much of what I read in the town plan, wouldn't it be good if the select board decided that was a good idea, for instance, just an example. And as I say, that's just something that's crossing my mind, and it strikes me as that there are many other like similar opportunities.
Hello, I'm Hugh Keelan, and I conduct the Wyndham Orchestra, and I've served on the Town Arts Committee since its inception. And the first thing I want to do is acknowledge that I strongly suspect that everybody who's here in this room, paid or unpaid, is only here because of a desire to serve. We are here at the service of the town of Brattleboro. That's at least one way of describing it. So here are we, the Town Arts Committee. We represent in our way that desire to serve. In my humble opinion, and this is not committee agreement, this is me speaking, we are underserving the town. We would like to find out, and it's not a rhetorical question, it'd be great to leave this meeting with some answers from the select board who represents the town, how we can better perform that service and what that might look like. And I get that we've done a lot and will continue to do a lot and are doing a lot. Nevertheless, I'm very aware of a gap between us as a necessary committee in the town, and we can see this meeting as the interchange between the select board and necessary committees, where it's indispensable. It's a certainty that you have to relate to that committee and have a flow with that committee for information, for action and results to happen. Now, we would love to be that too. We would love to be that, and we may not know how to do that, and that's the question that we come to. Forgive me, I'm not saying we here. That's what I would bring to this discussion from inside my personal position inside of the committee. So that would be a great thing for us to live with this evening, where we, in some way that isn't airy, it isn't woolly, really we can be at service in fulfilling visions for the town of Brattleboro. That's what I want us to be. And as I say, I'd love us to leave here this evening with a picture founded in reality of what that could look like for the best interest of all parties. And that's what I want to say. Thank you very much.
I'm John Wilberding. I'm a town rep, 2nd District. I sit on the Finance Committee. I'm a member of the Arts Committee, and I sing on the newest tenor with the Blanche Moise Chorale, which is a project at the Brattleboro Music Center. I care deeply about the arts. I'm a trained arts administrator and a musician, and in a long series of study, preparing for a career in the arts, I learned not only that there is business to be done, not only that there are management tasks connected to the arts. What kept reinforcing itself to me and underscoring itself to me is that there are intangibles about the arts, which I think a select board or a mayor with foresight recognized when you or your predecessor appointed a town arts committee. And my report, I think you'll see that I plead for a certain quality of the arts, a certain integrity of the arts, to be kept in mind as we debate and discuss public policy pertaining to the arts. This is not only about commerce, although I understand that you may have a main focus about the arts in commerce, and that's warranted. In a study that I did for the Arts Council last summer, I discovered, using the town's database of business license applicants and holders, I discovered that 20 to 25% of them had something to do with the arts. And that's a pretty big chunk of our on-the-books commerce. But we also know from the Finance Committee that for the $1 billion that we are aware of on the books in commerce in Brattleboro, there's another $19 billion out there, which is not on the books and which we don't really see in above-board finances and bookkeeping and taxation and things like that. It's partly because I think a lot of the arts projects and the arts initiatives that you see coming forward are brand new things. You're responding to somebody's leading, or somebody's spiritual leading, or somebody's creative impulse to give something to others. The arts function is to tell us who we are. And you can't quantify that. You can't be a business manager to learn how to do that. I want to commend you for your leadership in helping us understand as a community that the arts are an extremely important part of who we are and what we do and what we have to offer one another. And I just want to keep stressing that in my service on the Arts Committee, that there are things that that you should keep in mind when you're looking at just dollars and cents or nuts and bolts of running town government. This is something that you've done that transcends that, and I think it's a wonderful thing.
So we would like to hear from you.
Board's queried. Want to start off?
I'd like to begin just by saying that having been a part of a conversation that has continued to come back to this particular place, I really appreciate hearing from each of you and reading every single word that you've written and submitted to the board. I suspect that the board has some work to do that may not come to completion this evening, but having appointed an arts committee some time ago, I think you have asked us very directly, and that it may take some time for us to come back with a clear request. But what I appreciate is, first of all, that my mind swims in the possibility, both in the meetings, and that's very different than the work of the budget. And it also, for me, is a metaphor for all those intersections of art and town governance, all those important places where the arts could become much more front and center in our thinking, in our process, in the binder that comes before us, in the possibility for asking for you to do specific work and to be informed by your connections in this community. Mm-hmm. So thank you for presenting so articulately, so passionately, and I look forward to doing that work with the other select board members.
Thank you.
I read, and maybe not as carefully as Donna, every single word, but I did try to figure out what, I did look at this in terms of trying to identify what is something concrete, or what can we ask or consider to do. And what I identified, I think, in Doug's letter was the problem, or what I'm trying to articulate. I'm trying to say this is what I got from everything that I read so far. Mm-hmm. Is that the problem is we've got extensive capacity. We've got too much capacity, in a sense, for our current community. That artists are not being used to their potential, and seeing this as an opportunity for growth is the way we should view it. And I get that completely. And where I get stumped is, okay, how do we turn this opportunity into growth? Mm-hmm. And so I guess it's sort of my question or request from you is to think about that and try and give as much guidance as possible in terms of what we can do. You mentioned one real specific thing, the collaboration with UMass and the community college to put together an entrepreneurial core course. That's an obvious thing. And I remember from some of the earliest discussions about the grant that led to the Core Arts Project about performance space and accommodations and transportation and all the things that would bring people into the community to participate and to absorb some of that capacity. But I really, I'm ready to do everything we possibly can. I don't know quite what it is that we can do. So I look forward to working together for as long as it takes.
Great. Thank you. Thank you.
No, I just want to, I think I'm with Donna and David that we're probably not going to have the answer to Hugh's question as you leave tonight. Mm-hmm. But, I think we all recognize the important role that the arts plays in the community. And I've actually, in my daytime life, I've talked to several people about how important that is. The arts is not only because, it can look, sound, or feel good, but it is an economic driver for our community. So, and I think I agree with what David just said, that part of what we need from you is more concrete ideas. And I know that you came to ask us what our ideas were, but I sort of, as the town arts committee and somebody that doesn't know as much as you know, it would be helpful to really get some more solid thoughts from you folks. But I can say I genuinely understand and appreciate all that the arts community brings to our community. So I hope we can, not just on my daytime, but my nighttime, we can do what we can.
I have no more things to say. Really? Yeah. Okay. A couple other things that I just noticed that I wrote down and didn't mention before. One of the things that we just went up to Montpelier a couple weeks ago to talk to the governor about the problem of being a hub, which you addressed. And it strikes me that if you're going to be, you see that, you get that, and particularly in terms of the arts, it might be a way to help us build that sense of a region. Because I hope that we're going to be engaging with our broader community and with other hub towns in the state to see if we can build enough political momentum to get the legislature to actually take some actions to help deal with the problem. So anything that contributes to that growing awareness, that growing consciousness of us being a linked community would be very helpful. The other thing is that you probably know that there is a possibility that there'll be an influx of economic development funds. And one of the things that the governor mentioned when we were up there is that they're going to be looking for things that are really going to contribute to growth, that are really concrete, that are ready to go, and that are really going to result in economic development. So I just sort of restate that concrete proposals thing. Plan to take over the Austin School. I have no idea really what I'm talking about. It's just think in terms of that, because there will be some hopefully those resources will materialize, and the best proposals are going to get them if we've got anything to say about it.
Can I say something about? So I'm an artist. What do I know, right? But can I say something about economic growth? So economic growth, when it exists, is not an end in itself. All it does is it makes available a new set of opportunities. And it's a great thing. I shouldn't say all it does as a small thing. It's not the end in itself. Economic growth provides opportunity, new conditions, new things for people to do, new openings. That's what it has. Now, that's what we possibly, for argument's sake, are not that good at. But we're really good at end running to the other side of it and showing what life looks like once you have economic growth. I do it weekly with the orchestra, right? So with the orchestra, we do the work that we do, but always the result is, the desired result that we are thinking of, is happy, smiling faces who are loving being in our environment and want to pay money for it, right? That's the end run that we make around economic growth. We provide the result without having to do the economic growth bit, right? So that's where we might have some value for the town, is creating a highly desirable image of what is at the end of something rather than the steps along the way. Now, I don't know if that sounds theoretical or, again, artsy or ungrounded, but in my life it's a reality. It's actually what I do every week with large groups of people, is to create that atmosphere where things are possible rather than drudgery and uncertain, and it's hard work. This is a huge thing for people, and we would love to be part of the interface for a population having that.
We need to start to draw this one to a close, because there's a couple of other agenda items on the slate for tonight. What I would say is that I remember when I first arrived here in town 32 years ago, it was really clear that this was an incredibly culturally vibrant community, musically and artistically. And I think that one of the things I've seen over the course of the last 30 years is that in some ways the arts community has moved more into the mainstream. When you look downtown and you look at the businesses that we have and you look at the industry that we have, there's really been sort of a shift away to a certain extent downtown, for example, from core businesses towards more gallery-oriented and arts-oriented economic activity. It's a cause of frustration for some people because some of them wish that they could engage in more mainstream business downtown rather than having galleries and the like and arts businesses downtown. But it's a reality of what we have. And when you ask us what purpose can you serve, I was sitting here thinking, well, what is the charge of the Arts Committee? And I didn't say it to Patrick, but Patrick said it to Jan, and Jan went out and got a copy of the charge without me even having asked. So it's it's kind of scary that sometimes Patrick and I are thinking the same thing. But I look back at the charge of the Arts Committee, and it looks to me like these specific points go to just the issues that you're asking about, to connect and communicate arts issues to the town and town issues to artists, to provide counsel to the town about art public places, participate in development of artistic components in municipal projects, to serve as advocates, clearinghouse spokespersons for the community of artists, and to serve as liaison and resources. That's really what we're looking to you to achieve and to help provide direction for the town. The other thing that I would come back to, and I mentioned this 6 weeks ago when Donna noted that you wanted to come speak to us, is that there is this NEA Our Town grant. And I understand that that's not really the direct focus or responsibility of the Arts Committee, but what resonates for me, going back to when the Our Town grant was applied for, was this at least thought of an arts campus, an arts focus running through the town. And I certainly would prefer it to see as much collaboration and involvement between the planning department, administration of the grant, and the committee as a whole, so that there's an integrated vision of what we're trying to achieve as a community in terms of facilitating the growth of the arts and economic focus and encouragement in that area. So I know that I had asked Patrick to try to get a report back on what's going on with that NEA grant. It's not really time for it tonight, but I certainly would like to hear that come back to us sometime in the next 2, 4, 6, 8 weeks and understand better how that grant is interacting with the committee as a whole. And at the risk of being the last person to speak on the topic, unless there's something way more pressing comments that need to be made, we've run over about 5 or 10 minutes at least on this, and we've got other things on the agenda, so let's try to have a couple of concluding comments. Dave?
It's not concluding. I want to invite you to stay for the next item on the agenda, because I believe Mr. Chapman and Mr. Gould are going to be talking about promoting the town and recognizing the extraordinary nature of this area, and it dovetails exactly with what you're talking about.
If I may, I would like to submit that we do indeed have dozens and dozens and dozens of concrete ideas. We just wanted to give space to listen to other people other than ourselves.
Well, I want to thank you all for coming, and we certainly look forward to continuing to work with you, whatever it is that you're looking for from us.
Thank you very much.
Cool. So the next matter on the agenda is discussion of funding municipal services through donations. I think Chris and what's that?
Do we have a hat to pass?
Yeah, great. Chris and Eli, right?
Evening, folks. Well, my name is Chris Chapman. I live in Brattleboro, have for many years. And I've made a number of observations over the past 22 years since I've been back, and really felt moved to come with an idea tonight. Turns out that Eli Gould, also a longtime resident of the area, is thinking along a similar line, and we're here tonight to give to you two different ideas and hoping for your support so that they could, and with your support and leadership, get off the ground for the benefit of the town. Shall I?
Yeah, you go first for sure.
Okay, thank you. I had a document here that's about 3 pages long, but it's not something I just want to, that I want to read from. I do want to rather summarize and invite people to read the document itself. I was moved by the fact that our town is beloved by many of its citizens. It has many friends actually across the country. It's fair to say that there are people scattered around the world who also know Brattleboro and love it, having been here or worked with people from here. At the same time, we have an issue here in Brattleboro where it's fair to say that Brattleboro has needs that basically can't be met by asking yet more of its taxpayers. I am suggesting that the town take advantage of some key but underappreciated qualities that it enjoys and raise money from contributions over and above the property tax. I'm suggesting that Brattleboro do what many, if not most, charitable organizations do, which is to invite charitable contributions from those who appreciate the services of this community. And in particular, I propose that the town issue a general appeal for specific purpose gifts of cash or appreciated securities to help with purchase things that we simply can't afford in the budget right now. We have a long history of support from the community. It goes back more than 100 years. Look at the Thompson Trust, which has supported the Brattleboro Memorial Hospital. Look at Mr. Brooks, who built the town library. Look at Anna Marsh, who funded the Brattleboro Retreat, which is not municipal, but it is certainly something benefiting the entire community. United Way. And there are literally dozens of smaller local human service organizations that benefit from annual gifts and estate planning legacies. There have been actually luminary individuals over time who have been prominent in their generosity to the town, just to give more evidence of this population out there that really loves the town because of what the town is, represents, and has meant to them. Fred Harris, for whom the ski jump is named, Nelson Withington, for whom our skating rink is named, and last but hardly least, Bob Gannett, who with his wife Aldi were legendary in their own time for their quiet generosity to the town in countless ways. A number of foundations benefit the town as well. Thomas Thompson Trust, as I mentioned, and dozens, if not hundreds of people over time have given selflessly and tirelessly for the benefit of the town throughout its history. And I'm saying that having been in town government as a select board member, I've seen up close that our municipal government is in an excellent position to tap what really amounts to a long-standing and deep well of community spirit and generosity. And it can take advantage of its reputation for competence and integrity, that's unquestioned, by activating its underutilized role as a fostering agent and generally solicit donations of cash and appreciated securities just as other nonprofits do. This idea turns or changes the paradigm that has become quite common, where unfortunately there's a notion that not a dime more than necessary should be paid to local government, and only enough for the town's most basic services. However, given the long history of periodic, not regular, but periodic, but quite material evidence to the contrary, I suspect launching a long-term program, but quite simple program of appealing to the community, to its members' highest motivations, will yield lucrative long-term results. And we know that not everyone can respond. A lot of people here are having a hard time getting by. There are people who can afford it. And there are people who simply, although well-advised in their philanthropy, may not have done anything more than comment on the need here, and in their activity given to other organizations or other causes, could, with a simple, consistent appeal from the town, think of the town and do what others have done in the past, as I have mentioned. Here are a few ideas. If someone wanted to, they could write a check to support the Withington Rinks refrigeration upgrade and repairs. That's an immediate need. It's a tough one right now, with all that is on the record as being needed by the town. Highway Department capital items, road and sidewalk repairs, longer library hours, rec department items, such as the equipment shed that has been continually turned down in annual budget requests because it just wasn't that urgent relative to all the other needs. And debt. I'm aware of a little town in Maine. When I was a trust officer with a bank in Maine, and out of its Augusta office, I learned of a bequest that was made to the little town of Thorndike. Someone left several $100,000, big surprise, to the town, for the town's use. To this day, the income from that is used to support the town coffers. It was a quite general gift. And so there is precedent for it, through history and in many ways. The infrastructure necessary to do this is actually in place. The town's budget is finely sliced into many budget lines, all the way down to copier expenses. And donors could make specific purpose contributions for line A or B or C. And the select board, which already votes to approve receipts of contributions of grant money, is in a position to just do what it always does. And with an idea that comes up, say yes or no, the conditions aren't right in this prospective grant or gift. Or say yes, please, and here's to whom you write the check. The town communicates, at least annually, with its property taxpayers and can insert communications about gifting opportunities. So what I'm saying is that we have an opportunity here we simply need to take advantage of. I believe it wouldn't yield, probably, wouldn't yield immediate results, but considering the long history of periodic gifts that have been received, quite material support for things that benefit the town in general, I'd say we're in a great position to take advantage of motivations like that. Now let me talk about a larger context. We have going on right now, we're toward the front end of a major socioeconomic trend in the United States, which is the largest transfer of wealth from one generation to another in the history of civilization. It's estimated to amount to about $50 trillion over a 50 to 60 year period. And so if anyone were to say, now wait a minute, what about competing with all the organizations around that have part-time and full-time development programs and development officers? Aren't you basically proposing, Chris, to take their lunch? I'm saying no. I'm saying it's appropriate to view this situation as one full of opportunity. A philosophy of abundance is appropriate. And so I would say that we should take advantage of the strong culture of donations and volunteerism that we have in Brattleboro and capitalize on it. Capitalize on it for the good of the community. How to do that? Well, that would be for another day. And what I'm here to do tonight is to ask the Select Board for its support. I have not talked with any of the department heads. I have not tried to do anything more than come up with this idea to articulate to this board. Without the board's support, any other activity would really be, would amount to being meaningless because it needs the support of the town's leadership. And if the select board and the town manager and the department heads feel that it's appropriate to move ahead in some fashion and get together to formulate a strategy, I'd be happy to be involved. And I'm enthusiastic about the idea because I see that the possibilities are really quite strong up there. And well, that's my idea. And Eli?
Yeah, and Chris and I hadn't talked a whole lot about it until just before this meeting when we realized we were having a similar type of idea. And I'm really glad that he's speaking from the wealth management perspective. I think if there's, I hope you guys really listen to it. And likewise, I think if we have general support and maybe in my case, because I'm thinking of something more small ante, broad-based, still voluntary, but that would mend some of the fractures that have happened in all the fights over the 1% local option tax and over how really disproportionately burdened our property tax base is. So I not only am looking for support, but maybe a little bit of counsel from the town council to make sure that what I'm thinking about isn't breaking any laws. And then since I really have no banking expertise on how it gets executed, I guess that if there are small town bankers who think this is an idea with merit, I would invite them to talk to me some more about it. But the quick outline for me, and if people don't know, I do volunteer on the police fire committee, have served on some town boards in the past. Went to town meeting for the first time this year. I grew up in an outlying town that has a real town meeting, so this was a real education for me. But I, I did advocate for the 1% local option tax. I felt like we needed to have all options on the table. As I learned some more about it, I was actually not unhappy with the outcome because when the state takes 30% for administration of a local tax, it's hard for us all to watch that go away. But there was so much emotion and no numbers, and that bothers me as a business person. It also bothers me as a business person, not in a retail business and in a business that really, affects the grand list. I build generally nice homes, and more I build them in outlying towns and even outlying regions. And I still try and turn that into Brattleboro jobs. I still have my manufacturing here, but basically, with all the negativity and fear and people saying we can't afford this, it's pretty bad for our business. It's pretty bad for the part of my business now that's actually bringing in outside manufacturers. I think David's call to speak positively here at the start, is really my take home as well. But what I realize is we don't have any numbers on how people are actually shopping. There's been a lot of debates, and some people have cited studies from 1996, which, as far as I know, is pre-internet. And I started thinking, what if this was like my relationship with my lumberyard, where we go up and down together. They know when I come in that I might be spending 6 figures a year, and they know that there's a discount. And we need to mend what's happened with our local shoppers and our local retailers. My idea was to have just a voluntary 1% that was maybe in the form of a local credit or debit card. And you would walk into a local establishment, and as soon as they saw that, they would know you're I've been trying to think of a name, and I guess Local Hero was already taken by Western Mass. So I was thinking maybe something like Hubtown Hero. But when you wave that card, they know you're an everyday shopper, that you're there because you want to be, and somehow through some small town banking magic, there's 1% that goes into a pool and would go into the same infrastructure that Chris knows more about than I do. I would hope also voluntarily that if I walked into a store with that 1% card, that retailer would probably consider a 1% discount on that same purchase, just like my lumberyard does on a much larger level. I would also hope it would introduce some new measures, well, some numbers for one thing, and then some new measures of some local pride. And you would hear people talking about, we raised so much for our police fire station, or my business generated so much taxes for our Hubtown this year that were voluntary, that we're showing what an engine we are. So it's a positive spin. It's small money. I think it's doable with our existing credit card infrastructure without paying 30% to the state. I think it'd be a great thing. Every business person I've talked to, even the ones who have said no to the option tax, have said, "Oh yeah, I would probably support something like that." So I don't know a lot about how to do it. It was just an idea, but it fit right in with what we were already going to talk about. And I think if there's other expertise or a little bit of counsel to make sure that we're not breaking the law, then I would like to put a voluntary group together and bring it forward a little more.
Anybody on the board?
Yeah, I'd just like to mention that, Chris, you had mentioned schools in your proposal, and I don't know if you know that there already is a Brattleboro Town School endowment.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
Jill Stahl-Tyler put it together a couple of years ago. It's been very successful. And Eli, in terms of your question about talking to an attorney, she's been able to very quickly get an attorney to volunteer the time to do all the structural work to put it together. And I think if there probably is a banker in town that would be willing to do that as well. So I guess I'm ready to go.
I would point out that there is a portfolio of scholarship funds that people have given to over the years. I think the most recent major one was a fellow who maybe was a custodian and left several $100,000 in trust for scholarships. And those scholarships have been handed out for the past couple of years at high school graduation. These gifts keep coming over the transom. And they're episodic, and I suspect there's just more where those came from.
Donna wants to go first.
First, I just want to say thank you so much for thinking about possibilities and ways to serve the town. I really appreciate the thoroughness of your proposal. One quick question I have is, Chris, you had mentioned that you would be willing to, as the board sits with this and sort of sorts it, you'd be willing to serve in some capacity or help out with that. And I'm wondering if you could just briefly touch upon what your vision would be for how you might support this project if we are able to go forward with it.
I think that a brochure that's just popped into the property tax envelopes would be a very inexpensive way to get the word out quite widely everywhere in town. Everyone gets a property tax bill, and at least once a year there's that correspondence. I'd say that would be a great place to start. Less particularly, I think that as a matter of the way the town's culture works, I think it's far too modest in its accomplishments. You know, the town is a major employer. The town itself is a major employer here. It's got a $16 million budget, and that's nothing to sniff at. It also has some really fine achievements. It does what it's supposed to do. And I think that the credit is given every once in a while. I mean, Patrick was mentioning tonight about the public safety people. The town is very modest, It doesn't blow its own horn. I think it should. I think it kind of has to. How to do that appropriately, I'm not entirely sure. So I tell you, I do admit I'm speaking vaguely at the moment. But let me just give you one thing in particular that just really sticks in my mind from the time that I was on a select board, and that we're all aware of. But the astonishing achievement in this one incident, I think just really is emblematic of what the town not only is capable of, but just delivers quietly all the time. If you'll recall, we had the big fire on Main Street at the Brooks House. And yes, we have lauded the public servants who were there. But let me just articulate this. And somehow I think this story really should be a touchstone of our local government culture, our civic culture. We can practically take for granted that the town will respond promptly and expertly to any emergency, whether it's a snowstorm or a major fire or a flood. At the fire, there was an extremely well-coordinated response involving many fire departments, 20 or so. The fire crew was certified to go into the building to fight the fire within the structure. Had that crew not been certified, they would have had to fight the fire from the outside. And it couldn't have battled the furnace-like blaze that was going on within. And we could have ended up not only with an enormous hole on Main Street, but a number of injuries to the tenants and even deaths. A falling facade could have damaged buildings across the street too. And instead we had two, what I call Main Street miracles occur. No one sustained injuries other than some minor smoke inhalation. I think that's miraculous. Nearly miraculous. The building's structural integrity was preserved, allowing a renovation to take place, and surrounding buildings were also saved. Those were massive. There was close coordination within the town government among the departments, including police and utilities department, which ensured there was plenty of water late in the night in the mains to fight the fire, because they needed so much that it's estimated that 5 million gallons of water was poured into it. I think also one of the mysteries of that fire was, where did the 5 million gallons go? Because they didn't roll down Main Street. But at any rate, you see what I'm saying? The town is modest about what it can trumpet. I think that by mentioning as a matter of routine what a special place this is, the people will see, yes, well, this is a special place. And a lot of people do think it's a special place. I don't think I could be dragged kicking and screaming from town by wild horses. My parents used to say, and they met here and were married here and raised kids here, they used to hear them at the dinner table saying, we live in the best little town, in the best state, in the best region, in the best country in the world. And they would just marvel at their good fortune at having arrived to live here and thrive as they did. They didn't make a lot of money, but they certainly had big lives. Big lives. And we have big lives here. And I think we should do something with that, with a message that says it takes more than property taxes to make a town run. It takes these things that we all have within us, identify it, draw upon it.
First, I want to thank you because this is very thoughtful. I hadn't heard Eli's thing until tonight, but I appreciate the thought that goes into it. But, do the big but, I'm not sure that this is just me because I have to really wrap my head around a little bit more. I'm not convinced that the town should be in the business of doing fundraising. And I say that as somebody who spent a great part of my life doing fundraising. And I think it's a harder prospect than I think some people understand that it is. I also think that there already are places in town government that are doing exactly what you're proposing, We have the Friends of the Brooks House, Friends of Brooks Memorial Library that raise money for the library. We have the Friends of West River Park that are helping raise the money for the lights and whatever at West River Park. We have the police and fire who have their, I don't know if it's auxiliaries and other things. So I think in some ways we're already doing what you're suggesting we're doing. It's not under the big umbrella of the town, so to speak. So, I'm not ready tonight to make any decisions about this. Again, my concern is I'm really not sure that the town should be in the business of it, because I think it's a lot more complicated an effort than it appears to be. And I also do think we already are doing it, and we're leaving it up to individual parts of the town to do it. So that's sort of where I am. And I appreciate the idea and the thought that went into it. I'm just not ready tonight to be able to say we should move forward with it.
If I might, I'd say that I'm not asking for a response tonight. I'd like to let it sink in and see if the town would like to get involved with such an initiative. And I'd be happy to consult further, publicly or over coffee. Whatever it takes to get your questions answered, your concerns answered. I thought it was an idea worth bringing forward. That's all.
I want to just take one or two more comments. So, Dave?
Were you?
No.
Oh, okay. It was the hand moving behind you. Well, I am ready to say we should move forward with this in as many ways as we can. We are shorthanded in the town manager's office, so obviously be very limited in terms of what the department or what the town manager might be able to do, but I would certainly invite you to continue your work, and I would absolutely endorse the creation of the program. The reason, Kate, that I'm willing to just jump right in with both feet is that we are in a situation fiscally where we can't really afford to turn away from people's offers for support or new or more creative approaches, particularly given the ease with which those kinds of transfers and things can be done technologically. But I just don't see how we can even not take this this is basically a volunteer effort to try and develop a program that would work, and I don't see how we can turn away from the revenue. I think we have to look everywhere for revenue. We have to be open to things we've never thought about before. I think one of you mentioned not necessarily eating somebody else's lunch in terms of the park, the people that raise money for the park, or the library or those other organizations that are already doing fundraising. I think it's a different way. The idea of putting something in the tax bills, a brochure in the tax bills, makes perfect sense. The focusing and promoting and just pointing out the things you said about the integrity of the town makes perfect sense to me. Again, it can only help and build a greater sense of local pride. I think Eli's example is another good example, another more evidence of that people would take more pride in the community just based on participating in that way, helping in that way. I also think it's just such a direct link to what the Arts Committee is talking about in terms of promoting the area. I mean, when we describe in the brochure the great things about the town, obviously the Arts Committee would be something we would include. The Energy Committee has won a couple of statewide competitions and awards, including a $10,000 grant recently, and it's a little article in the paper, and we mentioned it at the select board meeting, but it's not out there. And there are just all these things that are going on that this would be a vehicle for us to extend the communication, but also to generate some revenue from it. I think, I'm perfectly willing to go slower than I would if it was just me, but I just cannot see, I don't want any sound of discouragement to enter your ears before you leave here.
Thank you.
John?
Well, I think it's a very meritorious idea coming from two gentlemen that have always shown their goodwill for the town and their dedication to the life of the town, and Chris Chapman in particular, giving us informed ideas because of his background in investment counseling. In the field of philanthropy, you have not only annual appeals that you can do. You can do major gift campaigns. You can do capital campaigns to raise money for specific capital items. You can do endowment campaigns to build a reserve, a big reserve for discretionary expenditures in the future. You can do planned giving efforts, which counsel people on leaving money to the community after they die. I do believe, however, that the foundation of democracy is a tripartite foundation. It is the public sector, of which you are an example in your work here, the private sector, which is the for-profit sector, and the charitable sector. And I think that eventually, because of issues of interest and potential conflicts of interest, you would probably decide to set up a community foundation of some sort. And you could do that by appointing a committee to study that and move toward that. And I think that it should be moved toward. I think it's a wonderful idea.
Thank you, John. Anybody else want to comment? I think that these are broad conceptual ideas, and I certainly encourage you to continue looking into them and advocating for them. There's a way in which I agree with John that, and also with Dave, that we need certainly to look at and consider all potential revenue sources and streams. I'm interested to know to what extent there is any sort of a precedent for an ongoing charitable giving campaign whose beneficiary is a municipality.
Mm-hmm.
Because let's remember, we're a municipality,
Mm-hmm.
and we provide core municipal services, and we raise our money through taxes, and then there are individual projects that we try to fund, West River Park being the perfect example, all through private fundraising. And these are all sort of unanswered questions within these broad conceptual ideas, and I want to thank you very much for coming and presenting. And I don't hear anybody saying we're not interested, but I think there's a lot of questions to be answered at this point.
Absolutely.
We'll take one more comment, and then there is a whole other agenda topic.
Yes, sorry. We don't have John Connor here, but he on first look didn't see any problem with like an earmark. Let's say we were trying to raise money for the police fire station through a voluntary 1%. It seems like all the fiscal structures are there to do that. So, that's what I would like some more town council on, if possible, to make sure that we're not breaking any rules by doing that. Or if somebody were to go to Keene with their 1% card or purchase an internet purchase, both are things which we think this is a business vehicle that could put that back to where it's actually costing us on services. So,
excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks.
The next item on tonight's agenda is a proposal by Mr. Harvey for forming a committee about energy generation. Mr. Harvey?
Pardon me. I'm George Harvey, and I'm a town meeting rep for District 3. I got involved in energy several years ago and started doing news analysis on a daily basis. This morphed into a blog that I have, geoharvey.wordpress.com, and at that blog I post the most interesting news that I have found each day, which is usually the result of about 3 hours of work looking at news items on the internet. There's usually about 15 items there. It gives me the opportunity to see trends and to see things that are very often missed in the news. And as a town meeting rep, I was concerned about taxes, but I was also concerned about the amount of money that Brattleboro is spending on electricity and fuel. And I wanted to make the suggestion that there is a confluence of forces that are developing right now that we should recognize, and we have to see that these are things that are going to they're going to cost money, or they're going to be an opportunity, and we can take advantage of them in that way. The first thing that I noticed that I wanted to talk about is the taxes, and the town meeting, the representative town meeting was really kind of dominated by the question of taxes and expenditures. It's a very important thing. People are very upset. That's why we've got a vote coming up on Thursday, and that is an issue. We have to address the question of how do we get money to pay for things that people want when they don't want to pay for them. And what we really have to do is think in ways that are imaginative. And I think that the people who are just presenting the thing about charity were doing exactly that. I'm coming up with a somewhat different approach. The second thing is that there's an enormous amount of money leaving Brattleboro every year. It's moving out of our economy, never to return. $24 million. Paul told me about the $24 million a year for electricity, something more than that for heat. We know that there's been some really marvelous work done by two different groups that were looking for a thermal utility. And that represents close to 50 million, possibly more than 50 million, leaving our economy every year. It has to be brought in. And of course, the way we do it is by painting paintings, singing songs. You know, we do a lot of work to bring money into our economy so that we can have the money to pay for things like electricity. The fact of the matter is, what is happening now is the changes in the energy situation are developing in such a way that we don't have to do that. We can make our own electricity locally. That money can stay in our economy. And as a matter of fact, both wind power, which I don't think is really appropriate for Brattleboro, but it may be appropriate for adjoining towns, and solar, are going to a point where they're not only cheaper than nuclear and coal, they're even cheaper than wind. I mean, than gas, natural gas. The Public Service Board in Minnesota awarded a large order to a solar farm that was chosen because it was the cheapest approach, cheaper than 5 competing natural gas plants for the same electricity. The city of Austin, Texas, just signed a contract for 150 megawatts of power from a solar farm at 4.8 cents per kilowatt hour. They could have got it cheaper from wind, about a penny a kilowatt hour cheaper for wind. The cost of natural gas would have been 6 cents. And even without support from any government, the solar power would have been only 1/10 cent a kilowatt hour higher than natural gas. And we have no idea what's going to happen to natural gas prices, but we do know that they're very unlikely to go down because they're on an upward trend now from historic lows. The prices of electricity and fuel are not the only issue here. We have to worry about resilience. This is something that we were taught by Hurricane Irene. Again, we saw the devastation around us. Vermont seemed to have been miraculously missed by Sandy, but the climate is getting worse. It's not the only thing that it can cause trouble. It is easy to envision Brattleboro losing electricity for a week because of a bad storm. It happens that a couple of weeks ago, the federal government, 2 different branches of the federal government facing 2 different issues, warned us about something that was much more serious. The Federal Energy Regulatory Commission warned us that if terrorists attacked 8 sites successfully in the United States, 1 factory and 4 transmitting stations, it would be possible to bring the entire U.S. grid down for a period of for a year and a half. I'm sorry. NASA told us that we missed by 6 days being hit by a coronal ejection that would be approximately the same as the Carrington event, which was in 1859, and completely screwed up the American telegraph system. What they were saying was that if we got hit by one of those ejections, it would bring the entire American grid down for 1 to 4 years. And Brattleboro would not be the first place to get its power back on unless we decide that we're going to do it ourselves. If we're prepared for that, then we can do it. And we can recover from just about anything if we're prepared in advance. And interestingly enough, the preparation puts us into a position where we're saving money every year. And when a solar farm goes up and it's providing power, the cost of that farm is completely paid off. We've talked about that many times. We do have the issue of carbon emissions. The United Nations, as I think some of you or all of you possibly know, is getting extremely upset about carbon emissions and is basically saying we can't afford to stop global warming. We cannot afford not to stop global warming, and that's what we're going to do if we don't do something. I'd like to see Brattleboro doing its part in that. The projects that we've got going, the solar projects, the potential project on the land at the landfill, these are things that need to be coordinated in addition. So what I'm suggesting is that a committee be put together to look into the question of how that coordination should be done, whether a utility should be formed or possibly a recommendation for a B Corp, or which would be a public good corporation, or possibly some other means. But to put together a way where we can generate our own power, keep the money local, keep the profit local. If we do this properly, we can reduce our need for taxes. We could turn it into something that could be a money-making thing for the town. And it would, if you think about the fact that just on electricity, $24 million a year represents, if you want to think of it this way, a $24 million a year business, which is just shipping its money out. If we form the business, that means we've got a business that's going to have to hire the employees to run $24 million worth of work. And in addition to that, that means that they're going to be paying taxes, or they're going to be, if it's a utility that's owned by the municipality, paying a profit, hopefully, to the town. It would reduce ratepayers' costs in addition to that. So these are the reasons that I brought this item up to the select board.
Thank you, Mr. Harvey. Anybody on the board?
George, have you considered the Energy Committee? The
yes,
current Energy Committee is they have a number of subcommittees.
Yes.
And I've spoken a lot about the idea of us becoming a utility and making some money on generating electricity. This is way beyond what I've ever thought of, but I appreciate the reason to look beyond that and the reason to try and coordinate things. So that's my question: is have you talked to the Energy Committee?
I have not. I've talked to individuals in the Energy Committee. I have not talked to the committee as a whole. And the reason why I didn't is because I think the Energy Committee is doing wonderful work. It's really impressive. And if a committee is formed, I'd like to see that committee work very closely with the Energy Committee at the very least. But the area in which the committee I'm envisioning would be working would include questions of how to form a business, and how that business should be run, how the business should be structured. And the question, of course, is if you say utility, there's always going to be somebody there who's going to say, I don't want to do that. I don't want to have the government owning things. That's socialism. And then on the other hand, if you you want to make this into a private corporation, you want to make very, very sure that that private corporation is not taken over by somebody in some other part of the world. So I think this goes a little bit further than the Energy Committee.
Yeah, I understand that.
But I do think that, as I said, at the very least, it should be working with the Energy Committee. And if the Finance Committee is working, then I'd like to be working with them too.
I think that the Energy Committee has really been doing excellent work, and the town as a whole has been doing really good work in striving towards energy efficiency, taking care of opportunity, or taking advantage of opportunities where they present themselves. I was pleased to see email communication come around yesterday or the day before, indicating that we have finished the conversion to LED lighting throughout the town, which is going to save very substantial money in terms of our energy usage on streetlights. We have entered into a contract for the first of a net metering project, and even though the select board had expressed some reluctance about talking about a second project, we certainly approved at the last meeting another RFP at least being developed and presented. As a general matter, I don't have any philosophical disagreement with the possibility of government ownership of something, whether it be named socialism or otherwise. But I think that at this point, the idea of utility to be owned by the municipality to engage in electric generation is, at least in my view, just way beyond the scope of really what our government is situated to do and is commissioned to do. I certainly understand that it would be, it might generate money over time, but I'm not really in favor at this time of formation of a committee with the goal of ascertaining whether we can form a local utility to generate electricity. I just think it's way beyond the scope of what we're equipped to do as a municipality at this point. So, I mean, I'm sorry to respond to your proposal that way, but I personally wouldn't vote in favor at this time of forming a committee with the goal of exploring whether we could form a municipal utility. So that's my current position. Anybody else from the board at this point?
Just, I can't remember the actual wording in the town plan, but there is something about securing energy or providing energy resource. Anyway, there's something. It's not totally off the charts. The scope of this is something we I never thought about in terms of the whole, providing for the whole town. I think it's important to look at exactly what George is asking for here, which is to look into all the aspects of generating electricity of an organization to generate electricity for all ratepayers of Brattleboro. And I'm not sure. I mean, I would vote to support that. I'm not sure that we need to for it to happen. If there are people that want to pursue that and can come up with a really concrete proposal, they can. If you, I guess my question is, why do we? I'm prepared to vote for it. I would rather it be a unanimous thing that we all see the light on. I shouldn't say the light. Sorry. Throw you into the darkness. Yeah, really. I take that back. Take that out. Everybody, delete that.
I can give you a response to that.
But but so basically, why is it important right now for the town to charter the committee or appoint the committee?
Of course, a committee is going to be made of volunteers. The volunteers are not going to be paid. So the town is not going to be jeopardizing anything by doing this. I do think that it is important, however, that the committee be formed in order to be able to talk with people who will take it seriously. And I'll give you an example. When I first started looking into this as a private thing about a year ago, I became interested in the GE Jenbacher engines, which could use local biomass resources to generate electricity and heat. And those resources do this in a way which is, it's biomass, but it's extremely clean. It's arguably cleaner than natural gas. I was able to get to the head of Jenbacher in the United States on one call. But the next, when I tried filling out the forms and saying I need information on requests, on how much this is going to cost, I got absolutely no response. Now, if I were working as a member of the Brattleboro Town's Committee on looking into potentially the town purchasing down the road, I think I would get a response. So I think that it is important that some kind of validity be given to the committee, and that it not just be an ad hoc committee, a committee of citizens.
Other comments, Mr. Wilmerding?
Yeah, thank you. John Wilmerding, 2nd District. I want to entreat you to listen very carefully to Mr. Harvey's request. When I began service on the Finance Committee 3 years ago, I said the first thing I'm going to look at, in addition to the life of our nonprofit and arts organizations in this town, is the possibility that the town can become more involved with renewable energy and producing renewable energy. In this trail has already been blazed by other towns in Vermont, notably Middlebury, who with an organization called Acorn, the town partnered with a local energy initiative and began to put up solar arrays. If we are now commissioning and participating in solar array projects with an option to purchase those projects 5, 10, 15 years out, whatever the time interval is, we might want to have a vehicle or a mechanism in place in the future to manage and operate those projects. This is why when the town, both times that the town has been considering solar projects, I have urged that you build into the contract with the contractor the right to delegate the town's interest in purchasing the array to a third-party organization. This would be what they call a microgrid organization. Note that we have a practical monopoly in the retail distribution of electricity in the state as a result of the merger of Green Mountain Power and CVPS. We should be already planning for how we're going to diversify economically the energy issues in the state. That's a very practical financial reason to look at this very, very seriously, but there's also the very, very urgent reason of global warming and climate change that call for us to be moving in the direction of renewable energy. I don't think you should kick this one down the road. I think that you should listen to this very, very carefully, and I would be willing to serve with George on an exploratory committee to look at and bring proposals to the town.
Any further comment or discussion? Ms. Bosworth.
Yeah, Michael Bosworth. I think it's worth exploring myself as well. I do think it's a big issue. It may be it's an awful lot for a town of our size, maybe to take on, but maybe not. It could be explored in a small way to begin with to see if there's any legs to it. There are instances out there where people have done stuff like this. The Washington Energy Cooperative, I think, serves a bunch of towns around Montpelier with their electricity needs. And there are other instances like that that could be studied to say, how did they get started? Is it helping that particular town? Is it bringing lower rates or not? To my mind, it could be a subcommittee of the Energy Committee, but I think it's worth exploring, and if it had merit, then it would take a while to have it happen. So the sooner you start exploring it, the sooner you get along that road, and you start exploring. You say, it's not appropriate for Brattleboro. That could be one outcome of that exploration. So I guess I'm also in favor of having some way to get that exploration started with some kind of town blessing. Could be the Energy Committee, but thanks.
Would you please indulge me one more sentence? I forgot to mention.
Quickly, please.
Yes. I've been looking at this long enough to have spoken with the previous chair of the select board about it. And he said, I think that might be an ideal application for a new enterprise fund, like the parking fund and the water and sewer management funds. This might be a way to look at that in the context of municipal activity.
Could I make...
Is there any further comment?
I would like to make one more comment,
Yep.
if I could, or a couple, actually. In light of what was just said by a couple of people before, Chris Chapman and I forget the other gentleman's name.
Eli Gould.
Yes, that's correct. I want to make note of the fact that recently one of the things that I saw in the news was that a $1.5 million wind turbine was put up in Holland, and it was funded using crowdfunding. And the time that it took to fund that turbine was under 24 hours. If we had a mechanism in place to be able to do that kind of thing, it might be that we could cover our costs of electricity by using that kind of mechanism. The other thing that I wanted to mention is I've already started talking with Green Mountain Power about this, and I talked with Dottie Schnur, who is their corporate spokesperson, and she said that they would very much like to be part of the conversation. This is not, and she pointed out that they are helping other communities do similar things, Montpelier being one of them.
Any further comment? Is there any sort of motion that anybody on the board is going to make?
What I'm interested in, what stands with me as an interesting proposal is that we do form a committee that is a subcommittee of the Energy Committee. I can't see any harm in exploring. It doesn't seem to me that it would commit the town to any particular action, or it would give us plenty of time to hear from you what the possibilities are as you explore communities that have moved forward. And I think it's a good idea.
Well, if I could comment on that, if it is a subcommittee of the Energy Committee, then what I would prefer to have it be would be a joint subcommittee of Energy and Finance. Just because of my reason for bringing this up as a separate committee to begin with, that it is outside of the general operation of the Energy Committee, because it would be designing or considering the design of business plans. But yes.
I think the best way to do that would be to invite Finance Committee members to join you. I think because that's the town meeting committee, not ours, we probably can't do that anyway.
All right. Fine.
So is there a motion? Doesn't sound like there's any motion at this point. I mean, what I would suggest to you is that you approach the Energy Committee and determine if there's any interest there in them working with you and forming a subcommittee. But I don't hear any interest at the select board right now of forming a separate committee to study the idea.
Very well.
But thanks for presenting. Thank you.
Thanks, George.
Certainly.
Mr. Boyd.
I'd like to throw one last monkey wrench into this. You've probably heard already. You know, you all want to put all this stuff up, but you're going to have to resort to these people who were here earlier and how to make the town, the countryside look beautiful with all these arrays you're going to put up. Somebody's got to figure that all out before they start doing that and see what it's going to do to you when you do it. Because right now they complain about these towers that they got up all around here that look like Christmas trees. If you look at them, but you don't look at them too hard, that's what they look like, Christmas trees sticking up above the tree lines out there. That don't hurt nothing. In fact, it looks better than seeing some dead branches hanging down. But I'm going to tell you, this town has grown a lot in the years. We got a good arts program going. And when I was driving truck, I promoted the strolling of the heifers all the way down the border. I had good results from that. I heard a lot about it from the people down there. And I have relatives down there too, by the way. And, you know, I used to give turkeys out, free of charge, unequivocally not known. I have a friend who was doing that before I quit working. And I had to retire because I can't practice what I preach and not honor what I say. I don't know if you understand that, but that's the way it goes. You talk about highway safety and you gotta practice that. And there's no people like the people you work with to do it with. And I'm happy to be in the town of Brattleboro. And I've learned quite a few things this past week about the TSO. And I'm not going to say any more about that until I see some more paperwork come down. But I'll tell you what, it's changed. Government has changed so bad. If you don't watch it every minute, you're going to turn a corner one day and run into something else that you didn't know about. I thank you for your time, and I wish you all a happy Easter.
Thank you, Mr. Boyd. So the Brattleboro Town Calendar, Wednesday, April 16, from 5:15 to 6:15, Skate Park Site Selection Committee meeting at the Gibson Aiken Conference Room. Thursday, April 17, from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., special town meeting vote here in the Select Board meeting room. Monday, April 21, 5:15 to 6:15 is the Skating Rink Committee meeting at the Nelson Withington Skating Rink, and 7 to 9 p.m. is a Development Review Board meeting at the Select Board meeting room. Tuesday, April 22, 8:30 to 9:30 in the morning is the Traffic Safety Committee here at the Select Board meeting room. At 5:15 to 8:15 in the evening is a Conservation Commission meeting in the Hannah Cosman room. Monday, April 28, 5:30 to 6:30 in the evening, Citizen Police Communication Committee at the Brooks Memorial Library Community Room. Tuesday, April 29, 5:15 to 6:15 in the evening, Skate Park Site Selection Committee at the Gibson Aiken Conference Room. Thursday, May 1, 4 to 5:30 p.m., Police Fire Facilities Building Committee at the Hannah Cosman Meeting Room, and 5:15 to 6:15 p.m., Skate Park Site Selection Committee meeting at the Gibson Aiken Conference Room. Monday, May 5 to 7 p.m., Energy Committee meeting at the Hannah Cosman Reading Room. And next Tuesday, May 6, 2 weeks from Tuesday, May 6, 2014, 6:15 to whenever, Select Board meeting here at the Select Board meeting room. I move to adjourn. All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? That carries 4-0. We're adjourned. I want to thank everybody who participated, everybody who's been watching the meeting, members of the press, I'd like to thank you, and ASL interpreters, and BCTV. Good night.